Hey, it's Greg from Cutting Edge Stencils and welcome to another edition of Home Talk. Today on Home Talk, I'm going to show you how easy it is to get this beautiful antique brick look by using stencils. Let's get going on it right now. I start with a grout color background here, and that's what's going on here. So I'm going to show you a little bit of that. Here's our brick stencil. Listen, I think a lot of you are forgetting an important step when you're doing your stenciling, and that's masking. And we like to use a blue painter's tape as opposed to regular masking tape. And why? Because painter's tape has less of a tack, less adhesive on the back, so it has less chance of removing any finish that it's stuck to. Another thing people forget is they forget to take their switch plates off and put a piece of tape right down the center of the outlet. Just go like that. Later, what we do is I come in, I take some 220 sandpaper, I lightly sand the surface. I also do that to my switch plate. I sand the surface to break the sheen so I can get good adhesion. Then I take a product like either Spray Bin, which is white pigmented shellac, has amazing adhesive qualities, or you can use something like sticks that we've talked about many times, these primers, adhesive primers that we get great adhesion, and we base coat our switch plates in an adhesive primer, and then at the end of the project, we put them right back on, and I just use a little fitch. A little fitch is a little brush like this. These are great. I mix my colors, and I kind of hand paint it right in place. Don't stick a lot of paint in the outlet. You know, that wouldn't be a good idea. You start plugging it in, you push paint in there, you don't want to do that. I've got my colors here. I've got my gray. I've got my 4-inch dense foam rollers. This project is less about having dry rollers and more about having a more wet roller when we do this technique. This is essentially a color wash. Okay, so what do? I take my gray. I'm just going to get a bunch up here. Pretty easy. I'm going to take my warm color right into it. Mix it around. What I'm doing is forming a tertiary color that is a mix of these two colors here. Now I look at this and I say, ooh, that's looking a little warm. So what do? I come into my gray. It's a little grayer. I mix that in on top. You're doing this wet on wet. You do not want to let the first color dry and then come in and then try to put the other color on top and then say, ooh, how come it's not blending? No, you do this wet on wet and you just keep moving it around until you get the pattern and the look that you like. You get the idea. Do this first, then you come in with your brick stencil. So I sprayed this with 2 coats of spray adhesive. I put on our stencil level, which is a must for a project like this because you want to keep your project level. You do not want your bricks dipping down. I've got my brighter red-orange color. I got my black here. I've got 2-inch rollers, and I'm going to be using this warm color here. These are my 3 brick colors right here. So what do? I want to take my brightest color, which is this reddy orange, brightest, meaning happiest, less earthy, the one that's going to jump out at you. Check it out. I put my bright color up, and this 2-inch roller fits beautifully in the brick. I take my warm tone here, and I go on top of my bright red color. And I'm burying my bright red color underneath here so it doesn't jump out and become too dramatic. We want to make sure that this project blends in with our woodwork. Okay, still you're saying, wow, that's still a little crazy, that's still a little bright. Don't worry about it. I come into my black, which I love. I've got my paletting tray, I'll call this. I get the black just on here the way I want and a light touch. And I do this little texture on top of the brick. Check this out. Pull up your stencil and you start to get this great brick illusion. Isn't it awesome? What we'll do then is we would come in and we would line this up with our existing painted areas and we'd be ready for the next course of brick. I want to come back over here. I showed you how easy the base coat is. I showed you how easy the brick is. I want to show you a little dry brush technique. I've got my black here. I've got a little spray bottle, and I'm going to put a little water in my tray, and I'm going to take my big staining brush. I've got a towel that I've wet and folded up nicely, and I want to dip my brush just into the leading edge of the paint. And then I want to wipe it off like that. So check this out. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to lightly dry brush this. See what I'm doing here? I'm toning it in, reducing contrast between the grout and the brick. I will even accentuate my edges and my corners. Natural places that a shadow would be, accentuate those, and it really starts to look cool. Now, I just diluted some more black paint. I've got it on my little chippy brush. I'm going to spatter here. Boom, spatter. I love it. Adds one more layer, makes this look like old industrial brick. Hey, don't you think this brick stencil turned out great? It's super easy. Anyone can do it. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Home Talk.